Hey guys, today I wanted to do a little comparison video with some beam shots. I know some of you are really into throwers, myself included. I hope this video will help you to decide which of these flashlights is right for you. From the left, I've got the Sofirn IF22a. In the middle, the Wurkkos FC-12. And here the Convoy L8. Now these two contain an SFT40 LED. This one contains an SBT90 LED. If we rearrange them from left to right, you've got an indication of which ones throw more. So this one being the one that throws the least. Then you got this one, and then you have this one here. And having a look at the reviews, the previous reviews of these flashlights makes sense as well. This one's measured at about 300 to 400 meters of throw. This one's 600 plus meters, and this one 1.5 kilometers. The beam shots are going to be very interesting for sure. When you get these lights, they all come with a charging cable and the battery included. The only difference is that the L8 does not come with the manual. I actually had to look it up online to see how to operate the flashlight. There's not too many modes on this light anyway, so it's quite easy to figure it out. Build quality of all these lights are absolutely fantastic, but I have to hand it to Convoy. They really create a beautiful looking light in terms of all these little facets that just these little details that they add on to the knurling. You know, if you look here in these cooling fins as well, the attention to detail with these cooling fins and the anodizing, this silky smooth anodizing, and you can tell that it's quite thick anodizing as well compared to the Sofirn and the Wurkkos. So I have to say, with the overall construction of the flashlight, I mean, I have to hand it to Convoy for the impeccable quality that you get with this light. Another thing to keep in mind is that the switch operation is quite different. I find the switch on the Convoy L8 to be pretty quiet. It's almost a little mushy compared to the FC12. FC12 has this nice, strong click when you press it, whereas this one, you don't really hear it. Really don't hear it too much, but again, that's probably more of a preference. Now, all these flashlights can be unscrewed from the tail cap and just underneath the head here, so you can take off the tube underneath the head and insert the battery, get to the back of the driver, that kind of thing. The only one that actually unscrews from the bezel is the L8. I know some people have the IF22a that has the unscrewable bezel. I didn't get one of those, so these have been kind of glued in or what have you, probably stop people tampering with them. And it does state in the warranty as well for these two that if you unscrew their head, play around with the insides of it, does void the warranty. So that's something to keep in mind. You can probably take the heads off if you warm up the flashlights really hot and then try to unscrew it. I think that should loosen up that glue. I've talked about the LEDs in here, but let's talk a bit about the lenses. So as you can see, I'll just point these up a little bit further, and you can see with the lenses, you've got these two here, which are just your basic smooth reflectors plus the glass lens on the front. I'm really surprised at the Wurkkos FC-12. It's hard to see here in that light, but you can sort of get a glimpse of it here, how far back that LED is. It's really deep seated in this little smooth reflector. And the throw on the FC-12 is just incredible for the small profile that you get with this light. If you look next at the Sofirn IF22a, this one has a TIR lens, total internal reflection, and I'll put that on an angle you can see. So basically, it's made of a polycarbonate material which sits directly on top of the LED and allows all that light to focus in one really bright spot. On top of that lens, you have a additional glass lens on top. I think that's really important to mention because that protects the plastic lens underneath. All TIR lenses, to my knowledge, are made of some type of polycarbonate. That's something to keep in mind. This one here, you can see it's just a really large reflector in there, smooth reflector with the LED seated flush at the base with a retaining ring. And a glass lens as well here. This is really the classic thrower model that you get with a lot of flashlights. So as you can see, there is quite a large difference between the sizes of all of these flashlights, with the FC12 being the smallest, and also, funny enough, being longer than the IF22a. The IF22a being a little bit wider around the battery tube, but also at the head, if you can see there. And you've got the Convoy L8, which is just gigantic. I think the head of that is about 8 to 9 centimeters in diameter. So this thing's not going to go in your jeans pocket for sure. These two, especially this one, you're not going to have any issues with that at all. Funny enough, when I go out during the night or just look for something to pick up, I tend to grab the FC12 because it's just so easy to slip into your pocket. You know, it's got that tactical mode as well, which allows you to access turbo from just a half press at the back. You know, picking this one up here, the IF22a, you know, one of the things you'll notice when you first use it, it's certainly got a larger profile up the top. You have to clip it into your pocket with the head of the flashlight facing up, otherwise it's not going to be fun digging into your leg. It throws a lot further than the FC12. Still is a perfectly functional EDC, but again, the head, it's one of those compromise things. If you want something that throws further, you're going to need something with a bigger head. There's no way around it really. So that's a compromise that you got to make. This one here, I find that I can put it into my hoodie pocket, a jacket pocket, and zip it up barely. It weighs about 600 grams with the battery, so it's not a light flashlight, not something that you can really carry around with you easily. But with that said, this thing is incredibly bright. It even throws further than my Immelent MR90 with the SBT 90.2 spot beam on turbo. Another thing to keep in mind, the user interface of the three flashlights vary quite significantly. So you see here with the FC12, it's got this tactical switch at the back, and it's also got the side switch here. Now the side switch doesn't work unless you turn on the tail switch. Only then can you sort of play around with the modes, switch to ramping mode, that kind of thing, actually operate the flashlight. So that tail switch has to be on. I find this a little bit annoying at times, especially if I just want to maybe get into a lower mode. You can do a shortcut here where you hold down the button, the side switch, and then press the back button, and that activates moonlight mode. Here it's hard to see on camera, but if you hold down that tactical button, it just remembers the last mode that you've been in. So you need to actually turn on the light and then start operating it, ramp it up and down from that switch. So that's just something to remember with this light. You know, I think it's very suited to tactical function. I have this thing set onto turbo with the tactical function. With the IF22a, it's very, very simple. Basically just ramp the light up and down. And let me see, yeah, you can ramp the light up and down like that just by holding that button up and down. Double tap for turbo. It's very, very bright. You can also lock the flashlight by tapping this button 4 times. Okay, whoops, 1 2 3 4. Yep, and then you'll see the light just blink a couple of times to show you that it's activated. I think this is really important, especially with these lights that exceed or meet around that 2000 lumen mark, to have a lockout function. I've had one of these turn on in my pocket before and almost burned me, so really got to be careful. This one doesn't have a lockout function, but at the same time, it's very, very difficult to activate that tactical mode in your pocket with that button sticking out there. The Convoy L8 is a little bit different. So to lock it, you actually need to press this button 10 times. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, and then you get a couple of flashes to show that the light is locked. Oops, just one flash. Basically, to unlock it, you do the same thing. So 1 2 3 4 5 wait 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. You can ramp the flashlight up and down while the flashlight's on. You can also change it into step ramping, or you can just leave it on the smooth ramping. You can also check the voltage of the flashlight, which I think is really cool, by tapping 5 times. So 1 2 3 4 5, and what it will do is that it just blinks out the voltage. So if it's 4 volts, you'll just see 4 quick flashes. and it's 4.1 volts. You have like 4 flashes and a kind of a pause and then another flash, so 4.1. I think this is a cool function, just lets you gauge the battery level. You can also activate momentary turbo mode by tapping that button 4 times, and it just allows you to access turbo by holding down that button. I do find though there is a slight delay when you're activating momentary turbo, so it's probably only half a second of a delay, but yeah, that's something interesting to keep in mind. Deactivate it 1 2 3 4. Okay, and there we go, it's back to normal mode again. It's a very simple UI. To get into turbo, just double tap that button from off, or if it's on in any of the other modes, double tap again. It will drop you into turbo. If you tap 3 times, you go into the strobe mode. One of the things that I found a bit annoying about this interface is that there's no shortcut to the low mode. So when you turn this on, it's just going to remember the last mode, and if it's on turbo, you're really going to blind yourself, which I did a couple of times. So what I always tend to do before I turn on the torch, I actually cover it and just make sure on the low mode, and if it's not, if it's on turbo or something like that, I just hold that button and switch it off into a lower mode, ramp it down to a lower mode. So that's something that I hope Convoy addresses the next time, but it's not a deal breaker for me. It's just slightly annoying. So when you do turn off the light, just make sure, preferably to ramp it into the low mode and then switch it off. All of these flashlights take different batteries, so you'll be able to see here that the Sofirn, I've actually got a Sofirn cell in the Wurkkos FC-12, and you've got a 21700 cell here for the IF22a, and the L8 has the biggest battery of all, the 26800 cell. This is a QB 26800 cell that I recently purchased, and look at that, 6,800 milliamp hour battery. It's double the capacity of that 18650 and double and more of my Samsung 30T here. Great battery, 30 amp draw. This is relatively new. I don't really see any other flashlights using this battery, but I do hope that there are some more of these in the future, because I think it's a really good cell that combines both high capacity and high draw. With this cell, you can really only charge it in the L8 unless you have an external 26800 charger, or you've managed to hack your charger. These two are pretty easy to charge. They're lighter as well. So yeah, another thing is with the run times, with this light having a SBT 90.2, you're certainly not going to get as high of a run time as these other two lights, especially on turbo. So that's something to keep in mind. Of course, you can just ramp that light down into the lower mode as well if you want that battery to last a little bit longer. In terms of the color temperature of these lights, you're going to find that these two with the SFT emitters are going to be a lot more on the cooler side, cool white. So if you need a flashlight that lets you identify colors accurately, these are probably going to be an issue. This one here has a slightly warmer color temperature, definitely a lot more warmer than these two lights anyway. For me personally, I don't really mind as long as that flashlight can throw and do the job, but I do prefer, of course, a light that's maybe more on the warmer side, more of a natural tint to it. But again, these ones have such amazing throw for the price point and the size. So which one should you get? Now, if you're looking for a light that you can easily just put in your pocket, it's quite adaptable to different situations, has a good amount of spill, I'd probably get this one. Now, it throws the least, but it produces a very useful beam. I find the IF22a has a spot beam, but not so much spill unless you ramp that up to turbo, high or turbo, whereas with the FC12 it produces quite a lot of spill, especially with the reflector structure. So this one's quite useful for general purpose, easy to put in your pocket, because look at the shape of that, you barely feel that in your pocket. The reversible clip's helpful as well, you can stick that onto your hat. It's also great value, I think it's about $30 that you can buy it online. Comes with a battery, a charger, everything that you need. So that's the best value one, I'd say. This one here is something if you want a step up, and if you compare the throw, you really see just a huge difference between the IF22a and the FC12. This TIR lens is able to capture and focus that beam perfectly to throw a huge distance, and I've modified this light as well. The spring popped in a high drain battery, and it throws even further than the recorded specs. It does fit in your pocket, but the head's going to jut out, so that's something to keep in mind. But again, like I mentioned before, that's a trade-off for the size. I mean, if you want a smaller reflector, something that fits a little better in your pocket, this one's good to go. This one here, though, if you want that extra power, then you're going to have to put up with that larger reflector. I find that I can stick it in my pocket and not worry too much about it. Just make sure that the head sticks up first. Now, for those of you wanting really a beast of a thrower, the Convoy L8 is the one to get. This throws further than the SBT90 on my Immelin MR90, so this really, it's incredible. I do some beam shots at the end of this video and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's just shocking when you turn this thing on. And when I was playing around with my Immelin MR90 with the spot beam, I thought that was super bright, but when I had this one, when I played around this one, I was even more shocked. So the value of this is incredible as well. I think it's about $90 to $100 US that you can buy this online for, including the battery, the charging cable, to have this amazing construction, and the LED, which itself costs about $50 something if you buy it separately. I can't find anything else that has that good of value. So I hope this comparison cleared up some questions for you and will help you decide which of these flashlights is best for your situation. If you want to know a bit more, if you have some questions, maybe a few things I didn't cover, because sometimes I do miss out on bits and pieces, please let me know in the comments and I will get back to you. If you found this video helpful, make sure that you like it and subscribe for more. Let's have a look at some of the beam shots. We're going to be doing a comparison video of the Wurkkos FC-12, the Sofirn IF22a and Convoy L8. These are a few throwers that I have, and let's have a look at the beam profiles. I'm standing off a bridge at the moment, and we're going to be able to get a decent distance here. You can see some trees all the way in the distance, and I'd say that's over 1 kilometer away. Over to the left here, starting off, we have here the Wurkkos FC-12. Okay, I'm going to grab the IF22a, turn that one on, and look at that. So FC-12 on the left and IF22a on the right, and you can see the IF22a really throws a lot further, and that makes sense. Throws about twice the distance, and the hot spot there is a lot more powerful. Let's have a look at it on the riverbank. Okay, FC-12 on the left, remember. Okay, but if you look all the way off into the distance where I'm pointing the lights, the IF22a reaches the back, just about reaches the back. I can see it tint those trees right in the distance. Whereas the FC-12, you get a little bit of that tint on it, but certainly not as much as the IF22a. And I'm going to grab the Convoy L8 Turbo. Look at that. It almost drowns out the other two. Okay. Holding all three at the moment. Okay, you should be able to see them closer here. Okay. And we'll move it all across. Let's have a look. And look at that. Easily, that L8 reaches all the way into the distance. Incredible. One thing I noticed as well is that the L8 does handle the heat a lot better, even though there is a much more powerful LED in there. I can feel the first two getting pretty hot, almost too hot to hold. Alright, I'm standing off a bridge at the moment, and we've got a nice view over here of the river, and I've got the Wurkkos FC-12. Let's turbo this, and look at that. Really strong spot beam. We're getting very close here. I mean, I'd say that's about maybe 30 meters or so, 30 to 50 meters. just off on the buildings and the trees in the distance. You see it, it's hitting the top of those buildings. Even there, look at that. The FC12, the smallest thrower, so it's just going to be on turbo. Let's give this a crack, and look at that, reaches all the way down the end. A good amount of spill, you can see that spill ring there. Okay, Wurkkos FC-12. FC12. Wurkkos FC-12. Got the Sofirn IF22a, and I'm going to put it straight onto turbo. Let's see how far this can throw. Wow, it's like a lightsaber. From this distance you can't really see too much spill at all, but it goes all the way, throws all the way off into the distance. I can see it straight off in the distance. Camera may not be able to capture it. You'll be able to see it around there. I'd say that's about maybe 300 or so meters. Coming a bit closer now. And of course, as you use this longer, it starts to trail off. And this light does start to ramp down, but I've still got a lot of light here at the moment. I think you can get about 3 or so minutes before the light noticeably starts to trail down. It's really just like a spot beam. Look at that. There's a boat here in the distance. I'm not going to shine on that boat, but you know, even on the water here, look at that, it hits the surface of that water, and you can even see leaves floating in the water there. It's amazing. Right. Off on the side here. Going a little bit further up again to these buildings, illuminating those buildings into the background as well. Amazing. Look at the river bank as well. The Yarra River. Light is starting to ramp down a little bit, but still a significant amount of light. If I turn it off, maybe double tap again. There we go. Gain a little bit extra. But I can feel that light really warming up. IF22a on turbo, and that's ridiculously bright, sort of piercing through the night. And look at that. Incredible. IF22a. Sofirn IF22a. Sofirn IF22a. Convoy L8, and we're going to drop it straight onto turbo mode, and we'll see how far it actually throws. And this is the biggest thrower that I've got. You're probably looking at 1.5 kilometers or even further. And let's go ahead, let's give it a try. And I'm going to start off a little bit closer, and the camera is set on the same ISO mode, so it's probably going to look too bright closer up, but that's just going to allow it to appear more accurately from a distance. So let's go around here, turbo mode. It's amazing. It's just got this incredible spot beam. It's really overpowering, even from a short distance here. You can see that beam project so far, straight through the night. Incredible. Oh my God. Look at that. That's probably about 500 meters already. Like, look at that. It reaches those trees right at the end. It's a boat to the left. I don't want to shine it on that boat, but incredible. Look at that. See it up in the sky, look at that. Convoy L8, let's give this a crack. Turbo. Jesus. Ridiculously bright. Look at that. No issues at all, reaching right through to the end. Convoy L8. Even reflects, it reflects the tree light on the ground. That hits that bridge off in the distance. Tree.